You are listening to Peak One Sports.
Welcome to the Peak One Sports Fight Night Preview, brought to you by the Bungalow Sports Show. I'm your host, Cole James Rambo. As always, we're talking all things combat sports on Thursday evenings, and today is no different. We're talking all things combat sports, and there is no really big MMA or boxing fight card going on this weekend. There's a lot of regional stuff. There always is. Jiu-jitsu, MMA, but just like lower level stuff. But that's not what we do here, okay? We focus on the big boys. Because that's the thing. You know, there's a lot of MMA coverage, a lot of fight coverage out there. But why get it from a big, giant sports company who just has the money to put behind, so everyone thinks they're the only option to get your MMA news? They're not. MMA is a sport that lives on the internet. Whether it's blogs or chat rooms and all kinds of stuff back in the day, the best media outlets for MMA and combat sports lives on the internet, just like this show. So, support. Go subscribe to Peak One Sports. Let's build this thing up. Let's build it up. All right? All these sports networks or sports shows, even the internet-based ones, your Pat McAfee's, your Barstools, all these big sports media outlets that have been built on the internet, they're all selling. They're all selling to the big machine. And that's fine. Get your money. But all I'm telling you out there is support Peak One Sports. Get us some numbers. Get us up there. Let us have a fighting chance. You know, let us have what everybody else has. All these big guys always had big money and big names behind them. We don't have that at Peak One Sports. All we got is a love of the game. And hopefully that's why you tune in every week. But there you go. That's it. That's my whole preachy thing for today. But I figure this week, since we don't got any big fights, we'll use this time wisely, and we'll just talk about some current events happening in the world around MMA combat sports. Sorry, there's no Alexis today. I'm kind of doing this. It's Thursday right now. Usually I like to record these on Tuesday or Wednesday and have them ready to be put out Thursday. But this week has just been real busy, so I'm kind of in here at an off time on Thursday, laying this thing down. Going to send it off straight to the presses right after this and get it up for you to watch. So this is about as up to the minute as you're going to get on this show, okay? Because you're probably all watching this just a few hours after I record it. But let's go over some headlines in the MMA world this week, all right? I know last week Alexis and I talked a little bit about the Francis Ngannou signing with the PFL. It's just a ton of money. He's got a place on the board of directors. He's not even going to fight MMA until next year. They're going to allow him to fight a big money boxing match in the interim time that they won't get paid for. Just a lot of crazy stuff that they gave Francis Ngannou in this contract, and it just makes you wonder, like, they're also in the process of, like, buying Bellator MMA, the PFL that is. They're also in that process right now. And the thing that with me is, you know, other, like, team sports and, like, the big sports here in America and kind of just around the world, you know, they all have, well, no, I don't know around the world. I shouldn't speak for the rest of the world. I don't fucking know enough about their how their sports work financially. But here in the United States, all of our big sporting leagues have salary caps except baseball. Right? Do they have one now? I don't know. They used to not have one. But, you know, the salary cap kind of puts a cap on the amount of spending that can happen. And in MMA and in these sports where the athletes are kind of like contractors, there's no salary cap, right? There's no first off, there's no like standard of what you should pay, and then there's also no max amount that you can pay, right? So, you know, it's always with the UFC, it's always they're paying too little. They need to pay more. But then you go to a place like the PFL and the amount of money and the amount of and in Ngannou's contract too, also not only is he making, tens of millions of dollars per fight, but he also has a clause in there that his opponent has to make like $2 million or whatever. And I'm sorry, but even at the highest level in the PFL, just based on advertising, eyeballs, everything else, nobody deserves to be making $2 million a fight in the PFL. When you're talking numbers, I don't want to be that guy. I don't deduce athletes down to numbers, all right? Obviously, I want everybody to make as much money as they possibly can. The promoters shouldn't be making more. I mean, it's a chicken or the egg with the promoter and fighters in this world. It's always has been. It's like, yeah, the promoter, you're not going to make any money without the fighter, but it's like, yeah, the fighter won't have anywhere to fight without the promoter. So who's supposed to make more money? Who's supposed to, be in charge of the decisions? It is what it is. Everybody's kind of making up their own rules as far as like fight leagues go, and the PFL made a decision. But the reason I brought this up with the salary cap analogy is like, you just guaranteed Ngannou a shitload of money and decision-making power and all kinds of stuff with your company. At the moment, you're also trying to make another multi-million-dollar deal to buy another MMA company that's fledgling, that you're going to get an influx of fighters and things like that. But I can't imagine why someone would buy Bellator. Why wouldn't you just let them peter out and go away, and then you just get to pick up as many other fighters are willing to come over? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is there. I'm not an executive type guy, but all I see is like two big giant money deals going on at the same time, and the company that's doing it, the Professional Fighters League, the PFL. Like, I get it. Maybe you got some big rich guy backing. I don't know where all the money's coming from, because ain't nobody talking about the PFL except me. You know what I mean? Like, there's the hardcores out there that'll watch anything with gloves and punching. But as far as like, the UFC's on ESPN, there's no way it's not going to make money. But the PFL, even though they play it on some network or something like that, it's just like it has to be sought out, and it's not like you're seeing PFL commercials all over the place. Like, where's the money coming from? And how do you have enough to buy Bellator and then also guarantee Ngannou this money in a world where, as Alexis and I said last week, like, he's not fighting MMA for another year probably. He's probably going to lose a boxing match in the interim to a high-level professional boxer, unless no high-level guys want to end up fighting him. Unless if it's a Tyson Fury, if it's a something like that, he's getting beat. It just is. I mean, he can always clip somebody with something, but I guess maybe his best bet is going to be like a Deontay Wilder, because they're both going to be in there just looking for that fucking dynamite shot. But if he goes up against a Tyson Fury or somebody who's a really good boxer and a really good mover, he's not going to win that. He'll bank a bunch of money, but he's not going to win that. And then he goes in. Let's say, even if he wins the boxing match, then he goes in to 2024 gearing up for his first MMA fight in the PFL. And by that time, I'm sure the merger with Bellator will be done, unless it falls through or something like that, and then they'll have another influx of heavyweights. So like Alexis's prediction is that by that time, that next spring, a year from now, Francis Ngannou it's gonna be like Ryan Bader, the Bellator heavyweight champion. It'll be his first fight since the merger, and it'll be against Francis Ngannou. And yeah, it'll get a lot of eyeballs and stuff. But if he fights Ryan Bader, he's losing. He's just he's gonna lose. He's gonna get wrestled. He's gonna get wrestled to death. Bottom line. And I say bottom line, but with a guy like Francis Ngannou, there's always a chance. It's MMA. There's always a chance he can land a punch that's going to just knock you out cold. But the chances of that happening against a high-level guy like Ryan Bader, the higher level you go, the slimmer and slimmer that chance that flash knockout chance gets, because these guys are experienced. Ryan Bader's going to know that you're looking for that, and he's going to do everything in his technique and power and everything else to just avoid that one shot in the first couple minutes and take you to the ground and grind you out until you're too tired to carry on, and then either he'll choke you out or he'll just pound on you enough until the ref stops it because you're so tired. And let's say he doesn't fight Ryan Bader. Let's say he fights the PFL champ. His name is slipping my mind at the moment. But, big, giant Russian guy, super powerful. And that's the thing at heavyweight is you can say everything you want about how powerful Francis Ngannou is, but it's heavyweight. Everybody's powerful. Everybody can sleep anybody at any given moment. So just because he might be more powerful than these guys, it's like, yeah, but they can still knock him out too. It's a weird game when MMA has always been a weird game when somebody comes in that's super powerful and it's all these super quick, impressive, crazy knockouts, right? Because in MMA, there's so many ways to lose that it's like, yeah, Francis Ngannou is scary if you're standing up with him, but we've all seen what happens when he gets wrestled, when he gets clinched, all this stuff. He tires out. The game of, he I don't want to say he gives up. I don't know if that's the right word, but I wrestled a big chunk of my life. It is grueling and it is painful when someone is so much better at you or better than you, and you're going up against them and they just grind on you. That's the only way I can explain what it's like to be in a wrestling match, to be in a wrestling situation with somebody that is just leaps and bounds ahead of you in it. It is a grinding. You feel like you're underneath the asphalt smasher, dude. Like the big tractor deal with the fucking with the big drum wheels that rolls over the asphalt after they lay it down. It just feels like you're stuck under a human one of those. Like that's what it feels like, and it's fucking tiring. It's embarrassing. It's shaming. It's disheartening because you think you're good. You've been practicing your wrestling, Francis Ngannou. You've been training your wrestling. You're wrestling. But that's all. That's great. That's great. But you also want to know what you prepared for the year before? A boxing match. And you want to know what Ryan Bader's been doing? He's been preparing for wrestling matches since he was a child. And again, whoever the Russian gentleman who is the heavyweight champion of PFL, you know what he's been doing since he was a child? Wrestling. So it's just it's a different game when you bring high-level wrestling into it. That's all I'm going to say about that. So I think the PFL is making a mistake with the type of contract. I think obviously a name like Ngannou is gonna boost their ratings a lot. But like I said, the money being spent on Bellator, whatever that is, the money being spent on Ngannou, and then banking on him still being just as popular next spring after he potentially loses a boxing match. I mean, it's a gamble. And like I said, you give him like a spot on the board. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, I don't know. Because that's the thing, is like I'm all pro athlete, like when it comes to athlete strikes or, all that, lockouts and things like that. I'm always on the side of the athlete, right? I know there's a lot of people who aren't, because they're just like, you get to play a game for a living. Just go out there and do it, you lucky bastard. You paid millions of dollars to swing a bat at a ball. You get millions of dollars to put a ball in a hoop. Like, but that's the thing, is without your desire to watch them do that, these owners and these teams and these promoters, they wouldn't make any money. But again, we live in America where business is business, and those people have a business too. That's their job. That's their livelihood, is to make as much money as they can promoting fights, owning teams, what have you. So it's like, yes, there's two sides of the coin, but both sides are just trying to make money. You can say the owners are trying to take advantage of the athletes in some situations, of course. But then you can also say that the athlete, they're not taking advantage of the owners, but, it just by trying to make literally suck every penny out of their talent, that is what you're trying to do. But when you're talking about a team sport, or you're talking about something where you're building to a championship, or you're trying to build a team to get to a championship, in football, and it happens all the times where a certain player, a quarterback in football, is usually, they're always the highest paid, and some of them get these giant contracts. The team can't fucking afford to give them the pieces around them to win, right? So there's Patrick Mahomes. He's a beautiful boy. Okay? I don't care if I'm not a Chiefs fan per se, but I've said it a million times, I'm just a football fan in general. But I like the guy more and more every time I hear him talk. And they're talking about his contract extension or his new contract. And he's like, yeah, of course, you want to make as much money as you can. He's like, but it's not about being the highest paid for me. He's like, I'm here. Like, yes, I get paid to play a sport, but it's a sport I've dreamed of being the best at since I was a baby. So I do have a cool job, but I also have a dream to leave a legacy behind in said sport, which I would say most professional athletes have. I'm sure some of them just, after you get to a certain age, you probably just, everything turns into a business. But while you're still in your prime, you have this dream of legacy. And sometimes that means taking less money in certain situations. And so there's an argument for both sides of coins when it comes to like labor issues with athletes and their promoters / owners or whatever. And then it always could say the networks are taking advantage of everybody. I mean, there's just everybody involved who's trying to make money off of other people. But that's the same thing. Go to Jeff Bezos makes money off of his employees, but those employees are also getting paid, right? I mean, I don't know. It's like every job. It's like, is every boss or every owner of every company taking advantage of their employees? No. Like, I don't know why we got into contract talk. Hey, tune into the Bungalow Sports Show this week because we'll probably get into a lot of that contract talk because I'm having Tony Nix, the one of the proprietors of this network. I'm having him on the Bungalow Sports Show this week's episode, and he's got a big announcement. But yeah, we won't need to talk about that anymore. And Ngannou, we'll see. It's an experiment that we're not going to see what happens until, like a year from now. So whatever. A lot of Jon Jones talk going on this week. Because it all started. Joey brought it up on the show last week of Joe Rogan talking about Tyson Fury and Jon Jones being locked in a room. Like, Jon Jones is going to fuck him up. And Tyson Fury got all angry and responded calling Joe a bald troll or some shit like that, which is weird because Tyson Fury's bald. So it's like, how are you going to make some fun of somebody for being bald when you yourself are bald? Whatever. But so, like, it was a stupid beef, and then he walked it back when Jon came out, and then Dana White commented on it about, well, shit, if he wants to do it, if we put McGregor Mayweather into a boxing ring, we can put Tyson Fury and Jon Jones into a cage, and blah blah blah. Just, manufactured media shit. But that fight's not happening. Tyson Fury's not fighting Jon Jones. Not gonna happen. But some real Jon Jones fights that we want to talk about is Jon Jones obviously wants to fight Stipe Miocic, right? He came back in the heavyweight division, and he didn't really guarantee how many fights he has left in his career when he's planning on retiring, but he did say that Ciryl Gane, Stipe Miocic were, after Ngannou left, Stipe Miocic and Ciryl Gane were, kind of targeted fights that he wanted to fight, and he did that. He fought Ciryl Gane, and just mollywopped him. And then, his next fight, he obviously wanted it to be Stipe Miocic. He wants to fight what a lot of people consider the GOAT of heavyweights because he's won it twice, his winning streak, just, again, a kind of all-around nice guy, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And yes, I think he'd mop the floor with Stipe, but that's another legacy thing, right? Jon Jones has enough money and his kids and his grandkids, and they all have enough money for their lives now. Now Jon Jones is just going for legacy. And so that Stipe Miocic fight is a legacy fight because even if it's kind of a foregone conclusion that Jon will win that fight, it's still on the record. I beat Stipe Miocic. And he can add to the record of beating the best guys from different eras at all weight classes. You know what I mean? So, because another heavyweight goatish type guy, light heavyweight goatish, Daniel Cormier, you know what I mean? It's like he beat him twice at light heavyweight, and then he was also the heavyweight champion. So it's like you can also conclude that Jon would have beat Cormier at heavyweight as well. So that adds to the legacy. So Jon Jones is going for these legacy fights, and Chael Sonnen kind of put it out there that like that fight's kind of going up in flames. That fight's not really most likely not going to happen, which is a bummer, right? Because the next man up for that is going to be Sergey Pavlovich. He's the next guy up as far as for a title shot or for a big fight in the heavyweight division. The guy's super good, and I think out of all the heavyweight fights right now, that will be, the most. I still think Jon Jones wins, but I think that's stylistically, at least a good matchup there. But again, nobody knows who the hell Sergey Pavlovich is, right? So, they're looking at, apparently it's strong rumors that they're looking at Jon Jones, Sergey Pavlovich in Australia, with that apparently the Miocic fight falling through. But that sucks not that I'm not a Jon Jones lover. The guy seems like a real piece of shit, but again, you got to separate the man from the sport sometimes to talk about these things. And if we're just talking about legacy, Sergey Pavlovich is not a legacy fight. Is it a fight to obviously show that Jon Jones is still the best, even though Pavlovich is an up-and-comer? He's a younger guy. He's a guy that just is kind of now making his name, and for Jon Jones to beat a guy like that, it's impressive, but it's also nobody's going to give a shit. Nobody's going to give a shit about that at all. But, I will, and we'll talk about it on here, but you know what I mean. I say that a lot. Nobody's going to give a shit. I'm going to give a shit. Hopefully you're going to give a shit. But we're talking about the masses, right? The casuals. They're not going to care about Jon. They'll tune in. A lot of people will tune in just based on Jon Jones fighting. But the super cashes that make a pay-per-view blow up, that get the numbers of big time pay-per-view numbers, both names have to take part in that. And Sergey's, he'll bring a couple villages in Russia, I'm sure, but he's not breaking the TiVo meter here in the States. What else can we talk about here? I'm trying to keep this short because, we don't have any fight cards to talk about. I guess we could talk about, this is when we say that UFC, it's nice to have these weeks off, because even with weeks off, they are a little oversaturated, because our next fight card coming up, I believe it's on June 3rd. It's Kai Kara France versus Ali Albini or something like that. And they're 125ers. Kai Kara France just challenged for the title, lost. But that's the dang headliner, and everybody else on the fight card is just nah. And I get it, it's a free one. But can't we just X that out? Just don't have that event and just sprinkle the whole fights on all those cards onto better cards, because all the fights on the card, I guess, could be good pieces of a bigger card. But on June 3rd, that card is a damn stinker, and you'll hear about it next week when we do our fight night preview. But so yeah, look forward to that. A real stinker coming up. Hopefully we have something else to talk about. What else? Anything else? That's all. We got a good show in today. I was, like I said, it was a busy week, and I was thinking maybe I wasn't even going to do it because there wasn't a fight card, but then I'm like, nah, we got to keep it up. We got to give these people some MMA talk. If you're new to the MMA space and you want some good resources for news and things like that, if it's looking for fight cards and when and where they are, you can go to tapology.com. Now, these are just free promos, but I'm just trying to give you guys resources to go get MMA news. Alexis likes Tapology a lot. What I use primarily is MMAmania.com and the MMA fighting app. They have an app that it used to be better. It's not updated quite as much, but they have a lot of obscure news on there about more obscure fights and things like that, and then MMAfighting.com has all the big headlines you want to hear from all across like combat sports and things like that. So those are both good outlets if you're looking for MMA news on kind of a daily basis and you want to add it to your repertoire. What else? I feel like I'm taking my approach on this show from here on out is just to pretend like you guys are all little babies, little bungalow babies who like from a different planet and you don't know what MMA is, and you're dipping your toe in with me here. So I'm going to just try to walk you through all the news and all the fights as best we can, and try to get you excited about it. Try to make our footprint in the MMA space, because I really, other than reading the articles off some of those websites I just told you about, I don't even listen to an MMA podcast, because I don't like a lot of the people who cover MMA are fucking mongoloids that I can't even, like, I don't even want to hear them talk. Their voice annoys me. And then when you go to the bigger names, you got like Brendan Schaub and stuff like that, but I'm not a huge fan of his. And also, like, I don't know, that show is it's, I like my stuff somewhere in between like mainstream and underground, somewhere in that gray middle, because that's when you're going to get real opinions. You're not, I guess Schaub gives some real opinions. Obviously, he gets a lot of hate for stuff. And, I do enjoy hearing the perspective of like people who used to actually do it. You know what I mean? That's why like a hockey show like Spittin' Chicklets or something like that is so good, because it's hosted by hockey players, guys who played in the NHL. So I tend to lean towards stuff like that when it comes to sports. I like a lot to hear from guys who have done it. So Brendan Schaub, I guess I wouldn't recommend his comedy, but if you'd like MMA podcast, he's got the Schaub Show you can subscribe to, where he just primarily talks about MMA and fighting and stuff like that. And if you like having a lot of the big names and big guests and stuff, he talks to a lot of, like, the Chael Sonnen talking about the Jon Jones stuff that came right from his show that came out yesterday. That's where Chael Sonnen broke some of that headline stuff there. So there, I just promoted a bunch of stuff that's not related to Peak One Sports. Good job, Cole. But on top of all that, of course, if you're watching this, subscribe to Peak One Sports. We've got the 100 subscriber challenge. It's looking like you guys are going to make me put on a damn shot collar or something if we get to our 100 subscriber mark. But anyways, that's Fight Night preview for this week. No fights, no nights, but some news. So we'll tune in to the Bungalow Sports Show on Monday, 2 p.m. 2 p.m. Pacific. I just, working with people that are in other time zones, I didn't think it'd be that hard for me. But when we get in here under these lights and under the camera, I forget times. But yeah, Bungalow Sports Show, 2 p.m. Pacific, Mondays. Go check it out next week.